The sun had barely risen over the quiet coastal town in the Philippines when the boy stepped out of his small wooden house. The salty air mixed with the smell of the sea and fried fish from a nearby stall. Waves gently hit the shore, a sound he had grown up with, a sound that had sung him to sleep on nights when hunger made it hard to rest. He tightened his grip around his old guitar, its surface scratched and faded, strings replaced more times than he could remember. This guitar wasn't just an instrument, it was his escape, his voice, his only way of dreaming beyond survival. Inside the house, his mother stood silently at the doorway, watching him leave. Her eyes were tired, lined with years of sacrifice, yet filled with hope she rarely allowed herself to feel. She had sold homemade snacks for years just to keep food on the table. His father had once been a fisherman until sickness forced him to stay home. The boy sang on the streets, at bus terminals, outside small restaurants, wherever someone might stop, listen, and drop a few coins into his cup. Music wasn't a choice for him, it was a lifeline. As he walked toward the bus station, memories flooded his mind. Nights when rain soaked his clothes as he sang under flickering streetlights. People passing by without noticing, others stopping, smiling, sometimes crying. He remembered singing Hotel California for the first time, how the song felt different, like it carried a story of being trapped and searching for freedom. Every time he sang it, he felt as if he was telling his own story, even if the words weren't written for him. The journey to the talent show auditions felt unreal. He had never traveled this far before. When the bus finally stopped near the audition venue, his heart began to pound. The building was enormous. Bright lights, banners, cameras everywhere. Contestants crowded the entrance, some confidently warming up their voices, others nervously pacing. Many wore stylish clothes, held shiny instruments, and talked about vocal coaches and past competitions. The boy stood quietly to the side, suddenly aware of his worn shoes and simple shirt. He almost turned back, but then he remembered his mother's words that morning. Sing like you always do. Sing from your heart. Taking a deep breath, he stepped inside. Backstage was louder than anything he had ever experienced. Voices echoed, laughter mixed with nervous sobs. Staff members rushed around with clipboards and headsets. The boy clutched his guitar close to his chest, as if letting go would cause everything to fall apart. A production assistant approached him, asking his name and where he was from. His voice trembled as he answered. The assistant smiled kindly, wishing him luck. That small moment of kindness steadied his shaking hands. Then came the call, next contestant. His legs felt heavy as he walked toward the stage entrance. The curtain separated him from the judges, the audience, and a future he couldn't yet imagine. He paused for a second, closing his eyes. In his mind, he saw the streets where he used to sing, the faces of strangers who had listened, the coins clinking in his cup. He reminded himself, this is just another place to sing. The curtain opened. Bright lights hit him instantly, blinding and overwhelming. The stage was massive, far bigger than any place he had ever performed. Thousands of eyes stared at him. The judges sat confidently behind their desk, expressions unreadable. He walked to the center of the stage slowly, his footsteps echoing in the silence. The audience murmured softly, some curious, some indifferent. "Hello," one judge said gently. "What's your name?" He introduced himself, his voice barely above a whisper. "And where are you from?" he explained, briefly, honestly. How he grew up poor, how he sang on the streets to help his family. The camera zoomed in, capturing his nervous expression, the way his fingers trembled around the guitar neck. The judges listened, nodding politely. They had heard many stories before, stories of hardship, struggle, dreams. No one yet knew that this one would be different. "What will you be singing for us today?" a judge asked. He swallowed hard. "Hotel California," he replied. There was a slight pause. Some audience members exchanged looks. It was a legendary song, difficult, often overdone. A risky choice, especially for someone so young and inexperienced. One judge raised an eyebrow slightly, not unkindly, but cautiously. Another leaned back in their chair, arms crossed. The room felt skeptical. "All right," the judge said. "Whenever you're ready." The first note left his guitar almost shyly, a soft, trembling sound that floated into the vast auditorium. It wasn't loud, it wasn't flashy, but it was honest. The boy's fingers moved gently across the worn strings, each vibration carrying years of struggle, hope, and silent prayers. The murmurs in the audience slowly faded as people realized something unexpected was happening. Then he began to sing. His voice was low and calm at first, slightly rough around the edges, like someone who had sung more for survival than for applause. On a dark desert highway. The words rolled out naturally, not rehearsed, not forced. It felt less like a performance and more like a confession. The melody wrapped around the room, warm and haunting at the same time. One judge leaned forward without even realizing it. Another stopped tapping their pen. The casual expressions on their faces began to change. Eyebrows softened, eyes widened slightly. This was not the voice they had expected from the shy boy standing under the bright lights. As he continued, his confidence grew. The nerves that had weighed down his shoulders slowly lifted. The stage lights no longer felt blinding. Instead, they felt like warmth. He closed his eyes briefly, letting the song carry him. In that moment, he was no longer on a global talent show stage. He was back on the streets singing into the night, pouring his heart out to anyone willing to listen. The audience sat perfectly still. Some leaned forward in their seats. Others held their breath. Phones that had been raised to record were now forgotten, lowered slowly as people became fully present. The boy's voice had an unusual depth, an emotional maturity that felt impossible for someone his age. Every lyric sounded lived in, as if he understood longing, loss, and the desire to escape. When he reached the chorus, something shifted. "Welcome to the Hotel California." His voice rose, stronger now, filled with aching emotion. It wasn't a perfect technical note, but it was real. It cracked slightly at the edges, and instead of weakening the performance, it made it more powerful. One judge's eyes filled with tears. Another covered their mouth, stunned by the raw feeling pouring from the stage. The boy's hands trembled as he played, but he didn't stop. His guitar, old and imperfect, seemed to sing with him. The sound echoed through the auditorium, bouncing off the walls, wrapping around every person in the room. It felt like time had slowed down, as if the world outside the theater no longer existed. In the audience, a woman wiped her cheeks. A man nodded slowly, eyes closed, as if remembering something long buried. People weren't just listening anymore. They were feeling the hunger, the hope, the loneliness, the quiet strength of a boy who had learned to sing before he learned to dream. The judges exchanged quick glances. One of them whispered, almost to themselves, "This is special." Another shook their head slowly, disbelief written across their face. They had seen thousands of auditions, heard countless voices, but this was different. This wasn't about range or technique. This was about truth. As the song progressed, the boy's voice grew more powerful, layered with emotion. He leaned slightly toward the microphone, his eyes opening, glistening under the lights. Tears threatened to fall, but he kept singing. Each word felt heavier now, more personal, as if he were telling his own story through someone else's song. Trapped by circumstance, longing for freedom, searching for a way out. When he reached the instrumental break, his fingers moved with surprising control. The guitar solo wasn't flashy, but it was soulful. Every note felt intentional, like a quiet cry echoing from deep within him. The audience listened in complete silence, afraid to break the moment. Then came the final verse. His voice softened again, fragile and exposed. It was the sound of a child who had seen too much, felt too deeply, and still dared to hope. A tear slipped down his cheek, catching the light. The camera zoomed in, capturing the raw emotion on his face, the fear, the vulnerability, the courage. One judge openly wiped their eyes now, no longer trying to hide it. Another leaned back, shaking their head in amazement, a small smile breaking through the emotion. Even the toughest-looking judge stared at the boy with newfound respect, eyes shining. As the final chorus approached, the boy took a deep breath. His chest rose, shoulders trembling slightly. This was the moment he had sung 1,000 times on the streets, but never like this. Never with this many people listening, never with this much at stake. He sang the last lines with everything he had left. The final note lingered in the air, trembling softly before fading into silence. For a heartbeat, nothing, no applause, no cheers, just silence. A silence so deep it felt sacred. The boy lowered his head slightly, breathing heavily, his hand still gripping the guitar. He wasn't sure what to think. He had sung from his heart. That was all he knew how to do. Whether it was enough, he didn't know. Then a single clap echoed through the room. Then another, and another. The silence shattered as the audience erupted. But the moment before the applause, the moment when the world stood still, would be remembered forever.